So it's been about a month since I started using these on the daily. And you can definitely see how this case has molded to the pens I've got in it. I've had some thicker ones on this side and some thin stuff on the other. And it's gotten beat up, it's gotten scratched, it's gotten all the really nice weathering, but the leather started to dry out a little bit. It just needs a bit of love. And so we're going to do my favorite part of having leather products, which is leather care. I'm actually one of those people that really like doing leather care. I take care of my leather boots, I take care of my leather handbags, and so I did want to see how these aged in a little bit first before I put anything on them. But now we're going to put on what I always put on my leather products, which is a conditioner, and in the case of Galen products, because they're beautifully colored, I sometimes use a clear cream and I sometimes don't. So we're going to see how they look once they've been conditioned. So this is my Crazy Horse Gray currently. You can see there's still a pretty large color difference even after a month of using, but I will say like this has started to darken. So we are going to unzip this so it's flat. I have taken all the pens out and then we're going to get into conditioning it. So after just conditioning the spine, I would say that it is definitely going to darken quite considerably, even just with conditioner. So we are going to go in and do the rest of this just with a little bit of this stuff. It's meant for saddles and boots and handbags, and I find that it works quite well. I've been using it now for a couple of years actually for all of my leather stuff. And I have, before I did this, I did wipe down this pen case. What I like is that it'll still you'll still see like the Crazy Horse texture with this conditioner on it. It just sort of takes away the micro scratches. So there, right here, you had a whole bunch of scratching earlier where the leather had just sort of rubbed against a zipper at some point, and it's taken away the worst of that, and you've just got like a little bit, it's left the prettiest stuff, and it's taken away the worst of it. So just with conditioner, we're still not as dark, but we are darker. So this side has conditioner. This side doesn't. I would say the spine took a lot of conditioner. And so we will now do the very last side of this book, which is right here. Galen does recommend conditioning their products. I think they say once a year. I was always taught that with purses you do it twice a year. You do it once in the fall and then you do it once in the spring. That is how I tend to do my handbags. I do my boots that I wear far more frequently. But boots that I don't wear, I tend to just do when I'm putting them away. I like to put away my boots clean. So, there we go. I will say, I'm shocked at how much the spine sort of soaked up. But again, because leather is a natural product, that can happen. So So the spine is considerably darker than everything else, and I'm just gonna sort of buff a tiny bit onto the keychain because I don't want a whole lot, but I do want it conditioned as well. And do I want a clear coat on this? That's the question. Because it will, you can see it sort of makes it shiny, but it also protects it. And it means that you still get the nice texture. Everything's just a bit more protected. It's sort of like a wax coating. Sure. I lose nothing by putting a clear coat on it. Well, it'll darken it a little bit more, but it will also protect it more. And we're heading into winter, and it's going to be tossed in bags a bunch over the next couple weeks. So for clear coat, I use Urad, which is what I use on my boots, but in black. And I like Urad because it just sort of brings out the natural shininess of the leather. I'm going to save the spine for last, actually. I'm going to work our way back to the spine. And now we just let this dry for a couple hours. So it's a little bit sticky now because really we've just put a wax coating on it. But I'd say it's still lighter than the one I've been tossing in my bag, but it is closer to the same tone. So now we're going to do the navy blue slip and zip. So the slip and zip has two pieces, and then this is the Travelers I've got in the Crazy Horse Navy. And I would say that these are actually pretty similar already. Really, this is just glossier because it's got a clear coat on it. Again, I don't know that I'm going to stick a clear coat on this, but it's definitely in need of a little bit of conditioning. It's just been quite dry lately, and I have been using them a bunch, and being quite dry, it just sort of sucks the moisture out of everything. So we're going to start with the board. I haven't figured out how I'm conditioning up inside all those strap loops, so we're just going to leave that. That's a next time problem. But you can see how the scratches were there. Pens scratch them, it happens, it's life. We just keep going. But I'll probably do the Q-tip. I do have a Q-tip. Just put a tiny dab. Work it up and down from both directions. And there's probably a tiny spot in the middle that isn't really getting covered, but honestly, I don't really care. This one, the board gets exposed to less, I would say, than any of my other leather products, because it's most of the time in its case, whereas all my other leather products sort of get used all the time and constantly are exposed to air. So that's now been conditioned, and let's do the case. I love this case. I love how it sort of colors. If you bend it, you'll get a white section. And I do really like that, how that leather's dyed that way. So let's condition this leather. I think it's really easy to overlook proper leather care, but the reality is if you're taking care of your leather boots or handbags, your pen cases should be no different. And in this case, I'm really only taking away the darkest bits of the patina, and they're gonna come back once I start using it a bunch again. I'm really only giving myself the ability to care for the leather. And then once I start using it a bunch, all of those sort of surface detail-y scratches, they're all there. They're all gonna come back. And you just embrace them, because that's one of the reasons we use leather. You wouldn't use leather if you didn't want it to have a personality. So, there we go. It's clear coat, it's conditioned. I'm going to pop the lid on this conditioner, because it would be a very me thing to do to knock it off my desk. And then we're going to grab the Urad in cream. I'm actually grabbing a new one because there was a little bit of color transfer from the gray. There wasn't much, but there was a little bit, and there's enough that I don't want to transfer gray to the navy. And I do find that, especially with the first time I clean Galen Leather products and condition them, there is sometimes a little bit of a color transfer. That's also the same thing that happens the first time I clean boots. So that sometimes you just have a little bit of a color transfer. Like there's just a tiny bit of surface level navy dye. And so I'd also rather clean them so that there was no color transfer to pens, which is not something that I've heard of happening, but I would rather avoid it if possible. So let's put our clear coat on. And because I am being particularly, I want to say lazy. Really, I'm not being lazy. I just don't feel like it. I'm not using sponges to do this. I am using gauze pads, which I find work quite well, especially for something that has like little edge bits like this, where you want to like get into them. Sponges are great for many things. Sponges are great for heels and for boots. Sponges are not so great for pen cases, I've found. They're just too big. It was too much. I need to wipe some of that off. And just like that, we're done. So they'll dry a little bit more over the next couple hours. This is almost dry, it's just slightly tacky, but everything now is very nicely protected. And I am now less concerned about spilling anything on it, because the very nice thing about Urad is that if you spill anything, it just sort of wipes off. Now, I haven't spilled fountain pen ink on any of my cases, but I know from experience that as soon as I put Urad on my boots, I can just wipe off dirt and mud and all that stuff. So I feel much safer with them now that they're properly protected, and I've greatly been enjoying them. I expect you'll see them on the channel far more. If you follow on Instagram, you've seen them a bunch, and I am very grateful to Galen Leather for sending them along because I've really been loving them. I've also been loving the ruler. It's been really helpful as I start working on Christmas cards to have such a fantastic ruler that just like stays in place when you put it down, and you don't have to worry about the numbers rubbing off on your page, which is my biggest pet peeve with rulers. So these are going to dry, and then pens are going to go back in them tomorrow, and then they're going to gain their lovely patinas back by being tossed in my bag, which honestly is probably the best part about leather pen cases, is that I can just toss them in my bag with no fear. So this fits quite nicely in a variety of places, and I'm very happy with how much of the like scratchy patina-y stuff stayed on here. Less stayed on the navy, but it'll be pretty quick to get that back. So I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know what your favorite Galen Leather product is, because I'm really enjoying the ones I have so far. I've got 2 Traveler's notebooks from them. I've got these. I've got one of their pen rests, and then I've got the brass ruler. But I definitely think there's going to be more products from them in my future, so I'd love to know what your recommendations are. And as always, thank you for watching.